We're going back to the basics today with a little explanation about what file types you can use in the basic or free version of Silhouette Studio. And I think this is super helpful because in my SVG shop, I get a lot of comments from customers that are frustrated because they purchased an SVG file to find that it does not work in their free edition of Silhouette Studio. Therefore, they have to consider either getting a refund for the file or they're going to have to upgrade to Designer's Edition of Silhouette Studio to use that SVG file. But before we dive in, I just want to say, hey, I'm Christy here at Crafty Christy's Creations, and I'm here to help you master your Silhouette. And today we're talking file types. So let's dive in. When you bring in files from outside of the Silhouette library or Silhouette Studio, you'll see up top, it'll tell you the name of the file that you brought in. So this is a Studio file, Studio 3, which is the third version of Silhouette Studio's files. That's what that means. And basically this is a vector file, meaning that you can resize the file and you'll see that the quality and nothing changes. And it is a vector file that is specific to the Silhouette Studio software. This is their proprietary software file type. So this file type will not work anywhere else except for inside Silhouette Studio. But it's basically your standard vector file. It will go ahead and add cut lines around it. So if I go to my send panel, which we'll get into this more detail later, but you'll see it will put that red line as your cut line, and it puts that around every piece. And this is your already, it's ready to cut as soon as you open the file into Silhouette Studio. So this is your Studio file. It is a vector file made specifically for the Silhouette software. And then the next file type is your JPEG. This is a photo. When I pull it off the mat, you'll see that it still has this white background behind it, and that's because it's a photo file. All photos have a background, and you'll see now if I send this one to the send panel, I have to put it back on my mat, but you'll see it can't cut it. Let's put this on a cut. You'll see it's not going to cut around each letter, it's going to cut around that white box around it. So in order to make this a cuttable file, there's some other steps we would have to do with a JPEG file. So that is your JPEG. It's a photo file. And as I pull it over here, if I resize this file, it actually still looks okay. If you were to resize the way that it was saved, I saved it at a pretty high dots per inch, and what that means is basically the very technical part is like that will determine how many pixels or little dots that are available in this picture to make it vibrant and not so blurry. So we save things at 300 dots per inch, and that makes it a little bit, you can resize without it getting really fuzzy. But you can see as I pull further out, now you can kind of see how there's that blurry fuzz that comes around here, just like there does in any picture that you would do. So that is your JPEG file. The next one here is DXF. And this is also a scalable file, but you'll see it only gives you the lines. And in order to make this a file that we can use, it's usable as it is. Let me say that. It's usable as it is, but you'll see when I grab everything, Things that are not connected, everything's in their own piece. So the inside of the A is its own piece. This outside letter is its own piece. So that makes it a little bit more difficult. If this was a more complicated file, this would take a lot of work so that we would know what color to cut what out of if it was going to be a multicolor design. And to make this a cuttable, to kind of get things back together, I'm going to right click and I'm going to make it a compound path. And now it took everything and kind of flipped it all together. So now it's one big piece. But you'll see there's no background to it. And then if I go to my sun panel, it will cut all of the pieces out. It's just kind of difficult for us to know what is what. And we will dive into this more as we move further into the course to let you really understand how to set these files up and what that means. But I just wanted to give you an overview of what file types right now. And then the last one is a PNG, which is a basically kind of a vector picture file, meaning you can see it's made to have no background, and I can resize it and it doesn't get really pixelated. I mean, it gets a little bit, but these are meant to scale, and by scale I mean I can make them larger and smaller. And they're meant to be able to do that without losing so much of that crispness. So if I were to send this to the send panel, it also only wants to cut the outline. So you can see it's only going to cut that box around my design. It's not going to cut individually the pieces out. So just like with the JPEG, this is another one we are going to have to do some manipulating to make it ready to cut the little line around each piece. So again, just to recap, the 4 file types that can be used in the free or standard version of Silhouette Studio will include your PNG and JPEG files, which are your kind of photo file types. And then you've also got your DXF file, which is a vector file, and then the Silhouette's proprietary file type, which is the studio file. Well, there you have it. We've covered the 4 file types that you can use in the free version of Silhouette Studio. You have the studio file, the JPEG, the PNG, and the DXF. So if you want to be using an SVG vector file, I highly recommend upgrading to Designer's Edition so you can do that. SVGs are a lot more commonplace in the crafting world, and they're a lot easier to get your hands on. So there's some food for thought, and whether or not an upgrade is right for you, you can easily find PNG files and then you would have to trace them, or continue purchasing from the Silhouette Design Store, which will give you that studio file version. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and a like, so that way I know you're interested in learning more about Silhouette Studio and how to craft with your cutting machine.